let's look at using a lacrosse ball here to open up the rhomboids and the musculature around your scapula, your shoulder blade. We're going to look at the angle of the scapula, which is right here. It's that bottom portion of the triangle that opens and closes as we move our arm up and down. The lacrosse ball is going to fit into the space just adjacent toward the spine next to that angle of the scapula. So as we rock on back here, we're going to lie right on it and then move the lacrosse ball adjacent to it. Now, the lacrosse ball should be in the middle between the angle of the scapula and the spine. So right in that meaty space. It's pretty noticeable. So as we're in this space here, we can start to have a sense of what the lacrosse ball's moving on. If we go too far to the side here, the ball will roll next to and then on top of the spine. We don't want to be there. If we roll too far this direction, we'll be on the scapula proper, and then we'll be on some of the other musculature that we're not trying to work on. We're trying to work on the paraspinal muscles and the rhomboids. So we're right in that sweet spot between the scapula and the spinous processes of the spine. Now that we're in this space here, we're going to bring our arm up. We can let our head back and rest. Bring our arm up towards the ceiling, and we're going to drive our fingers into the ceiling like we're trying to plug it into the stars there. And then rock it back, squeezing our shoulder down, activating the rhomboids as we squeeze the shoulder down into the mat. And we're going to work that up and down a bit, just like this. What we're doing here is we're pinning down the fascia, the connective tissue here, and we should feel the contraction and the stretch up to the ceiling and contraction down into the mat of the rhomboids and the paraspinal muscles as the lacrosse ball pins those tissues down. Then we're going to bring our pinky down to the mat adjacent to the hip, and then bring our thumb up to the top of the mat here, making a big arc with the arm. Again, the lacrosse ball is pinning down that tissue, and as the scapula moves to accommodate the arm's movement, it'll start to open up any of that scar tissue that's in the rhomboid region there. Now, we've had the lacrosse ball in one spot the whole time. We can wiggle our hips down and find a new space, and then we do the same procedure. We plug our fingertips into the ceiling, we bring our shoulder back to the mat, and then we do our beautiful arc here. Now, the number of reps you do of each is really up to you. It depends on how tight you feel. Bringing the arm out to the side here just tends to just jam the lacrosse ball into the spine. So I like to keep our movements in this arc motion and this piston motion of the arm here. As we work up higher and higher, the lacrosse ball starts to miss things. And so we can use our hand here as an assist if we want to make some more pressure, and we bring the ball into a more coherent space. And so as we start working lacrosse ball up higher, we can be a little bit more gentle if we find that putting too much pressure with the body is going to be a little bit more damaging. So we can find those other spaces again as we work up closer and closer into the top of the thoracic cage here. The muscle that's found right here is called the trapezius. The trapezius attaches out on the side of the scapula here, but also attaches to the base of the skull. And so even though we're working on the thoracic cage, I would like to see the lacrosse ball up into the base of the skull here, and just a gentle motion saying no from side to side, and a little bit of yes as well, opening up the attachment of the trapezius to the base of the skull. And so as we work from side to side here, we'll feel the restriction of the different bony prominences of the skull, the external occipital protuberance, which is a little bump in the back of the head, and then the mastoid process, which is behind the ear, we know we've gone too far when we feel the lacrosse ball resting on bone. Whoop, that's a little too far. And then here, if we start saying yes, it'll start to bump that EOP. So we're just finding those little muscular attachments, saying hello with the yeses and the nos, maybe some figure eights as well, but just getting into those different spaces at the base of the skull, opening up the trapezius that actually runs down the spine adjacent to the scapula along with those rhomboids.